Yakuza Like a Dragon really threw me for a loop. I had no idea what to expect. I'm not much of a Yakuza person, but when I saw this was on Game Pass, I was like, I have to try it. So let's go ahead and talk about my experience with the game. We're going to be talking about the combat, the story, the overall design of the game, the music, as well as the extra content. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get started with the combat. The combat is turn-based, which is a surprising twist on the Yakuza series. These days, turn-based games can't really get by with just being turn-based. They typically have to offer some sort of element that makes it interesting, and boy does Yakuza deliver. There are mechanics like when an enemy is down and the next acting party member attacks before they stand up, that party member does extra damage. There's also perfect guarding, where with any attack, if you time a B button press correctly, you can do a perfect guard and take a lot less damage than you normally would have. Hitting an enemy on the ground and perfect guarding are perfect ways to keep combat engaging, which can be sort of a challenge when it comes to turn-based games. The game's skills also require you to time a Y button press correctly or mash the X button for maximum damage, which is also a great way of keeping a player focused on combat during battles instead of just mashing buttons. Instead of shuffling through menus to select what action you want to take, you select it at the press of a button, which is kind of similar to how Mario RPG did it back in the day. And for a more modern reference, Persona 5 has a very similar command system. For example, if you want to attack, you just hit the A button and select your target. You want to cast a spell or perform a skill, you just hit Y and then go through that menu. You wouldn't assume a button press to feel any different than just hitting a few arrows up and down on a menu, but you'd be pretty surprised at how it feels. The only thing I disliked about combat was sometimes, especially when you're running on the map, the party members can get pretty far behind. When you initiate combat and the one who's running behind is up first, you could select the action, but it takes a few seconds for the party member to actually enter the fray and go up for the attack, because they have to catch up. That, and some areas are just really bad to fight in. You have some people climbing over fences, going around walls, or just straight up getting hit by cars. Well, I lied. I guess I have another gripe with it. When selecting allies to use items or skills, there wasn't a marker within the UI at the bottom of the screen telling you who's being targeted. It's not really necessary, but it would have really helped a lot. Sometimes characters were so far away I couldn't tell who I was targeting at first glance. The game also has a job system, and I love what they did with it. These aren't your typical jobs like Knight, Bard, Black Mage, and all that. No, they have things like breakers who are breakdancers, bodyguards, hosts, idols, etc. The weapons for those jobs are items that you'd expect each one to carry, like an idol having a microphone. This is because each job refers to the actual occupation you're supposedly taking on. They spared no expense at just being hilarious with the system, but it also works really well. Each job has their own skills to learn and weapons to wield, just as you'd expect. For example, an idol can sing a song to heal you, or a breaker can fight with his feet, so they'll use anklets as weapons. I have two major downsides for this job system. For one, you don't actually unlock the job system until you're like a quarter of the way through the game. This is kind of a big deal for me because there could have been a lot of progress to be made in your jobs up to that point. Second, there is a specific place you have to go to change jobs. You can't do it from the menu. This makes sense within the story and you'll find out what I mean when you play it, but it's a huge inconvenience. Luckily, there is a taxi location near Hello Work, which is a place you change jobs at, so you can quick travel there easily, but it's still a big inconvenience. The story at first is a very slow build, but it really pays off because they're setting stuff up for later on in the game. In fact, you may be a little upsetting at the pacing in the beginning and how it feels like you're not really doing anything, and it may feel even worse after an important section near the beginning, but trust me, it gets interesting. Luckily, the protagonist Kasuga is a pretty lovable character which gets you through the beginning just fine. Of course, those are just my opinions. A story is really hard to judge whether it's good or bad because it's such a subjective experience. The way it is written, however, is very good, and I can't say I ended up having too many questions at the end. Throughout the story and content, I really appreciated the references to RPGs like Dragon Quest. Eventually, Kasuga starts seeing things in his hero vision, which is what gives you that glow during battles in certain scenes. Hell, even the battle system itself is basically a reference to Mario RPG. Oh, and if you're the type of person to not like JRPG tropes or cliches, you'll be happy to know that the story didn't really have any, so even a hard ass like yourself may be able to enjoy it. So in this design section, we'll be talking about art, animations, character design, dungeon design, and voice acting. For character models, Yakuza goes pretty realistic, and it's mostly pretty well done. Animations, well, there are a lot of times where it is fantastic, especially with the male characters. However, there were a lot of times, especially with the female characters, where the faces and animations just felt very bare bones. Eyes, lips, and eyebrows didn't really move as much as they probably should have, and it felt a little robotronic at times. It's not terrible, and in most parts, the good heavily outweighs the bad, but it is very noticeable. Otherwise, most of the models really do look realistic and very good. Each character was designed how it feels like they should have been given their personality and their profession, and even the jobs from the job system looked really good too, like Kasuga's breakdancer outfit. The main thing in the cinematic department was the camera. The camera in Yakuza is very dynamic. Each time a character talks, it takes the appropriate angle to put the character into focus, or sometimes will keep multiple people in the shot to show who the character is talking to or gauge people's reactions. It also conveys emotion. When the animations were good, the camera would really drive home the emotion characters were feeling. It also didn't stay in one place for too long. It was moving along with almost each line of dialogue. They even used it in the extra content and sub-stories. The dungeons are another story altogether. It's probably the most controversial point when talking about this game. Obviously, the game wanted to be realistic with a touch of fantasy using Kasuga's hero vision, so there really aren't any actual dungeons. When you go to fight a boss, you're usually traversing either underground or inside some big buildings for the enemy HQs. So yeah, this game isn't gonna have dungeons like you're used to in JRPGs. I do, however, wish that because they weren't really dungeons, they'd be a little bit shorter, especially the underground ones. All they were very long stretches of running and walking with the occasional battle. Voice acting was also really on point. Being the first, I think, don't quote me on that, Yakuza game to be dubbed in English, I was really surprised at how good it was. I was also surprised at how much of this game was voice acted, which was pretty much all of it, including some of the side quests. There is a ton of stuff that you can do in this game. In addition to a multitude of side quests, you can play golf, manage a business, which was my personal favorite, play games like Virtua Fighter in the arcade, play Dragon Kart, fight as a part-time hero, and so on. The side quests are great, as always in JRPGs, for getting items and having an excuse to go out and fight enemies for experience, but they also reveal and shape Kasuga as a human being, adding to his character development. In addition to the story, you have things like drink links, which is basically bond building you have with your characters. These can be initiated when going to your hideout with your friends. The characters interact with Kasuga and fill in their backstories as well as things that are going on in their lives, as if this wasn't done enough in the story itself. This makes the characters feel like real friends, not just party members, giving a sense of realism within the game. If you want a comparison, think of it like the bonding you do in Persona 5. The backstories aren't the only benefits from bonding. There's also the fact that characters with high bond levels get more experience when they're outside of the battles. The only drawback is, like the job system, drink links take a while to become available to you. Kasuga even has his own personality that you can develop. There are several parts to it, including passion, confidence, kindness, charisma, intellect, and style. There are several different ways to build these, and they all have perks to raising them. And they all get raised pretty naturally in the story itself, so you don't have to do a whole lot of extra stuff. Again, this is similar to the social stat system of Persona 5, but I would say it's much easier to build on since the story isn't revolved around the calendar, meaning you have all the time you need to develop Kasuga's personality. The music was really good. It's like a little piece of the puzzle that fits in its spot. I will say that there wasn't anything hugely eye, or in this case, ear-opening about it. There wasn't even music when walking around, which added a sense of immersion, I suppose, to the streets, but I would have appreciated a light track here and there. I suppose perhaps I'm just spoiled by JRPGs always having such amazing soundtracks. This one wasn't bad, it just could have used a little bit more. You had music and karaoke at the bar, but again, that's locked behind progression and where you are. Yakuza Like a Dragon is a really good game. Combat is engaging, the story is well written, art and animations are usually pretty amazing, and there is always something to do aside from the story itself. The biggest drawbacks are the slow build to the story and a lot of game-defining mechanics. A much smaller drawback would be the music that we just discussed. Still, I would highly recommend this game to anyone. I'll give Yakuza Like a Dragon my personal rating of 8 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for joining me here for this video. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and click the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you would like to see some more content here in the future. We do a lot of discussions about JRPGs, whereas we do reviews, mechanic discussions, look backs, look aheads, anything like that. I recently started a Patreon as well, so if you feel like supporting me there, please, I recommend that you go ahead and do so. That'll be it from me for today, everybody. Remember to have a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever and whenever you are, and as always, stay crazy.